Welcome back to Movie Recaps. Today I will show you a drama,
A Soviet sniper became nightmare. Okay.
history, war film from 2001, titled Enemy at the Gates. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. In 1942, a year after the German invasion of the Soviet Union during World War II, Red Army soldier Vasily Zaitsev is on a train to Stalingrad, thinking about the time his grandfather taught him how to shoot a rifle while hunting. On the train with him, there are hundreds of other soldiers, but also various civilians, including Tanya Chernova, who Vasily notices but doesn't dare to speak to. The civilians leave in the middle of the journey while the soldiers are dropped right in the middle of the Battle of Stalingrad. They need to board a boat to reach the front lines, and the enemy takes advantage of this, dropping bombs and opening fire on them as soon as they see them. Many soldiers fall, and when seeing this, others jump in the water trying to escape, only to be shot by their own superior officers for deserting. Once they reach the docks, only one of every two soldiers is given a rifle, the other is given bullets and instructions to follow the soldier with a weapon. The group is forced into a suicidal charge that the Germans easily overpower, and Vasily, who was given bullets, barely survives the assault by staying close to the ground and pretending to be dead. Once again, soldiers that try to escape are shot by their own side, considering them cowards and traitors. Soon the area is covered with bodies, with nobody alive in sight, until a few moments later, a car tries to cross the area. A tank shell hits it and knocks it over, and out of it comes Commissar Danilov, who rushes to hide inside a fountain, pretending to be another body in the pile and miraculously not getting killed when a group of Germans drive by and shoot at the bodies to make sure there aren't any survivors. Once they're gone, Danilov takes a rifle from one of the bodies and tries to shoot some soldiers he can see in a nearby building, but the weapon is out of ammo. At that moment, Danilov discovers he actually isn't the only one alive in the fountain. Vasily has been hiding there as well, and he asks him for his rifle so he can load it with the bullets he was given when he arrived. Vasily also tells him he should wait for an explosion to shoot so they aren't discovered. But since Danilov is a political commissar, his experience with weapons is limited, so he lets Vasily have the rifle instead. As another car with soldiers arrives, Vasily moves behind a hole on the fountain wall, and as soon as he hears an explosion, he starts shooting each German one by one on the head with absolute efficiency. Hours later, once they have been rescued and taken back to headquarters, Danilov prints a series of pamphlets detailing Vasily's heroic feat. Many days later, Chairman Nikita Khrushchev arrives at Stalingrad to coordinate the defense of the city, since Stalingrad is a symbol of Stalin's power and they can't afford to lose it. Furious after hearing about yet another loss, he demands ideas from his subordinates on how to improve morale, but most of the soldiers just repeat the same ineffective tactics they've been using for years. Danilov, however, proposes something different. He thinks that instead of punishment, they must deliver hope. They should create a hero and inspire people, to make them want to protect the motherland, and he has the perfect hero for that job. Danilov's idea is approved and he gets promoted to senior lieutenant. Vasily's face now appears in the newspaper, presenting him as an example to follow. He's also been promoted, in his case, to the sniper division. From then on, Vasily becomes the face of the Russian army, both a national hero and propaganda icon, and his exploits would appear on every edition of the army's newspaper, plus on pamphlets that would make their way all over the walls of the country. One day, during one of his missions, Vasily and his team are found by a young boy called Sasha Filippov, who admires Vasily. He invites him to his very humble home,
The picture was black and white, and he looked like cool in it, and it made me think of Giga Chad.
where his mother, Mrs. Filippov, prepares him dinner as thanks for what he's done for their homeland. Soon after they make it there, Danilov arrives as well, bringing letters from Vasily's fans from all over the country. To keep up with the plan of hope and propaganda, Danilov makes him reply to all of them, although he's the one that tells Vasily what to write, especially since he has to help him with spelling. One more person arrives after they begin, Tanya, the girl from the train, who is like a sister to Sasha and has become a private in the local militia. She's also fluent in German because she's studied at the university. Danilov wants to recruit her because they need more soldiers that understand German, but Tanya would rather stay and fight, especially since the local militia are short on men. She changes her mind when Danilov explains how much she could help them by decoding Geram intel, and that he'll send 12 soldiers in exchange for every person that speaks German. Meanwhile, the German army is starting to suffer the toll Vasily and his team of snipers are causing in their ranks, so they summon German Major Erwin König, a renowned marksman and head of the German army sniper school at Sasson. He's tasked with killing Vasily, and König prepares a plan to make Vasily come to him instead of doing the chasing. Some hours later, Vasily is woken up from a nap by his team because there's some trouble in the department store sector. Vasily shoots a shadow in the window and a helmet falls, so believing they've hit their target, he takes Ludmila with him to find the body. The companion they leave behind is shot as soon as they're gone. The duo makes it inside the department store and sneaks around until they reach the window, only to find that the shape they had seen is a mannequin posed to make it look like a sniper. This is obviously a trap, and when Vasily finds a cigarette butt on the ground, he realizes their enemy is still there, watching them. He thinks they should take it easy and stay hidden until they think of a proper plan to escape, but as planes start arriving and bombing the area, Ludmila gets scared and runs away, giving Koenig the perfect chance to shoot her, but Vasily escapes before Koenig can do the same to him as well. Koenig returns to the hideout he's staying at and gets his shoes cleaned by Sasha, who pretends to be an innocent bystander but is passing Koenig information about Vasily in exchange for food so the Major will trust him and share information of his whereabouts in return. When the Red Army learns that the Germans are using Koenig, they bring over a former student of his, Kulikov, to teach Vasily how Koenig thinks and help him kill him. Before returning to the field, however, Vasily must attend a special party in his honor. After saying hello to Tanya, he's dragged by Khrushchev to see the journalists, answer questions, take pictures and look at a giant Stalin painting, because according to Khrushchev, he's always watching over his country. Seeing the painting makes Vasily think of the day his grandfather taught him to shoot again. It turns out he failed his first shot and that allowed the wolf to reach their horse and eat it. Some days later, Vasily, Kulikov and another member of the sniper team, Volodya, enter an abandoned building where they have been told they could find Koenig. As they sneak around as carefully as possible, they find a body in a shooting position, posed like the last trap. This means they're on the right track. After crossing an open area and luckily avoiding all bullets from the enemy, they manage to shoot 2 different repair guys before it's time for dinner. Volodya leaves his partners for a moment to retrieve the soup he had been heating in another room, but gets captured in the way. Koenig and his team try to make him confess where Vasily is hiding, but since Volodya won't talk, they dress him up as their own and send him out to pretend he's another repair guy. Without knowing who it really is, Kulikov immediately kills him, revealing their location on purpose so when he makes a helmet appear at the window, the enemy will shoot it and reveal their location as well. Koenig doesn't fall for the trap, so the duo decides to relocate, but when they jump an open section of the floor, Koenig takes the chance and shoots Kulikov while Vasily escapes safely.
Midair!
This constant chase between Vasily and Koenig is taking too long, and an impatient Khrushchev is starting to get on Danilov's back. After their meeting, Danilov goes to see Tanya to bring her a gift and try to court her, but she surprises him by asking to be reassigned. Some hours later, Vasily returns to headquarters and his mood isn't the best. He's never seen a shot like he's seen today, and thinks Koenig may be too good for him to beat. Danilov promises him they're getting new intel and that next time, Vasily will be 1 or perhaps even more steps ahead of him, so he has nothing to worry about. But he does ask for a favor in return. He wants Vasily to talk to Tanya and convince her not to ask for that transfer. When Vasily tries to do so, Tanya explains that she asked to be transferred because earlier in the morning, she learned her parents were among a group of prisoners that were executed by the Germans, and she wants to go there and fight. Understanding her need for revenge, Vasily gives her Kulikov's rifle. After Sasha shares information with both of them, Koenig and Vasily go to the same abandoned building, thinking they will surprise the other. While Koenig waits at an elevated platform, Vasily and his sniper partner enter through and hide behind the pipes, the shaking of which alerts Koenig of their position. As soon as the duo tries to move, Koenig shoots them, causing Vasily to lose his rifle and his companion to get hurt. Vasily sends his partner back to headquarters since he can't do anything in that state, and while the sniper makes his way back into the pipe, Vasily tries to recover his rifle by tying some rope to a knife and throwing it at the weapon to drag him towards him. But when he finally manages to land it correctly, Koenig cuts the rope with an easy shot.
Oh,
when
he's
some German
okay,
planes
dude.
fly by dropping some bombs, they shatter the glass roof, and some of the shards fall in front of Vasily, giving Koenig a full view of his face. At headquarters, Danilov is trying to convince Tanya not to fight, that her skills are more valuable in the intellectual field. Their argument is interrupted by the returning sniper, who tells them what happened. Tanya doesn't hesitate to go through the same pipe route to reach him in order to help, but as soon as he sees her, Vasily tells her to stay where she is and follow his plan. The same way Koenig has been watching him through the glass, Vasily has also used a shard to watch him in return, and thanks to this he knows his location. He asks Tanya to grab another piece of glass and turn it until the light reflects on it and blinds Koenig, creating an opening for Vasily to safely recover his rifle and shoot him. He doesn't manage to kill Koenig, but he does hurt his hand. Later, when Vasily and Tanya return to headquarters, they celebrate being alive with the rest soldiers, and afterward, they hide under the covers and make love right in the middle of the communal bedroom. The next morning, Vasily asks Danilov to stop writing about him. He can't carry this weight on his shoulders anymore, and he wants to fight as a regular soldier. Danilov doesn't accept this, and to manipulate Vasily into feeling bad for even asking, he brings over Sasha, who shows him how proud he is for having gotten intel from Koenig. With the kid looking at him with some much hope in his eyes, Vasily can't say no, and he allows Sasha to guide him to the area where Koenig will be waiting. The ground is covered with bodies, so Vasily hides among them and proceeds to wait for Koenig to show up. There's an issue, however. He spends so much time waiting there that he falls asleep. When Koenig finally sees him from his hiding spot, he is about to shoot him, only to suddenly see a looting soldier appear between them, moving Vasily's body as if he were dead and easily stealing all his belongings. The German army captures this soldier and finds he stole Vasily's ID, which makes them think Vasily is dead. Koenig doesn't agree, but he's dismissed anyway. Refusing to go home while Vasily may still be out there, Koenig talks to Sasha again, and, already suspecting what may be happening, tells him which his next location will be. At the Russian headquarters, Khrushchev finds out the Germans are passing around the news of Vasily's death and gets furious at Danilov, who doesn't believe it. Khrushchev doesn't care if it's true or not. He wants Danilov to do—
Guys, wouldn't the body make some steam, at least a little bit, if it's cold? Or at least when he picked up the pocket, he would feel the heart or feel the heat of the body?
Is writing magic and convince the public everything is fine. Afterward, Danilov tries to talk to Tanya about her possibly traveling to his house, but they're interrupted when the loudspeakers start announcing Vasily's death as well. Danilov gets ready to write an announcement of Vasily's death as a hero, but at that moment, the man himself comes back. He explains how he missed his shot for falling asleep and that he—
It goes cold? Dude, the guy's alive, you know that, right? The guy's alive. The sniper. They went to loot the sniper guy, alright? Not only sniper guy. When they went to loot him, to get the pocket, the heart's right here.
He had to stay hidden from a man trying to kill him, so Danilov accepts to transfer him. Then Vasily asks about Tanya, and Sasha tells him he knew he was alive and told her, so she's gone to the station to find Koenig and get revenge. Danilov and Vasily rush to the station to rescue her, and when they find her, Vasily and Tanya kiss, causing Danilov to get incredibly jealous. So when he returns to headquarters, instead of writing his report about Vasily's heroism, he communicates to the world that Vasily became a traitor. What they aren't aware of is the fact Koenig has seen them at the station, and now knows for sure that Sasha has been passing on the information, so he captures the kid and hangs him off a pole to bait Vasily. The one who almost falls for it when seeing the body though, it's Tanya, and she doesn't go after Koenig only because Vasily stops her, saying that's what he wants. They agree on a plan. While Vasily goes after him, Tanya asks Danilov for a favor and together they go to see Mrs. Filippov to get her out of the country with a special pass Danilov got for her. Mrs. Filippov doesn't want to leave without Sasha, but not to make her upset, instead of telling her Sasha died, they tell her he joined the Germans. Mrs. Filippov doesn't blame him for it if it means he's safe and accepts to leave with them. On the way to the boat, a bomb explodes near them, hurting Tanya. Danilov thinks she's died and leaves, but Mrs. Filippov doesn't give up and convinces a doctor to let Tanya board with her by showing her special pass and saying Tanya is her daughter. Vasily and Koenig are at a standoff in their respective hiding spots, not knowing where the other is. Danilov suddenly shows up next to Vasily, and now that Tanya is dead, he thinks he has nothing else to live for and humanity isn't worth saving. As a way to make up for the lies he made up about Vasily, he sacrifices himself and comes out of hiding so Koenig can shoot him and reveal his location. Vasily thinks ahead and doesn't immediately react, so now Koenig thinks he's killed Vasily himself and comes out to check the body. Vasily is waiting for him midway, and as soon as he aims his rifle at him, Koenig takes off his hat and accepts his fate. After killing him, Vasily takes his rifle and leaves it with Danilov's body. 2 months later, after the Germans have surrendered, Vasily gets a letter from Tanya, saying she's alive and being taken care of at a field hospital. Once the city is safe enough to travel, Vasily goes to the address on the letter and then the couple happily reunites. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.
But then what happened is that the bullet, they don't do the whole movie. The bullet was infected and then she dies from infection. And the guy, since he went there, he catches sickness because it's so cold and he dies too.
Today I will show you a crime, drama, thriller film from 2009 titled Law Abiding Citizen. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. Clyde is a tinkerer. His daughter has followed in his footsteps and made a bracelet for him and is now—
Guys. Spoiler ahead one more time. If you don't want to get spoiled about these movies and you want to watch them on your own, okay, then you should stop watching. I'm not kidding. You should literally stop watching and not watch this movie called Law Abiding Citizen if you want to watch the movie. If you want to watch the movie, the recap, I mean, you watch it with us.
Now making one for mommy. Clyde's wife asks him to open the door. When he does, he is knocked down and 2 burglars enter the house. They tie Clyde's hands and rob the house. One of the burglars, Darby, says, "You can't fight fate," and stabs Clyde. Darby's accomplice, Rupert, tries to get out, but is only told to shut up. Clyde is forced to witness the rape and murder of his wife, and when his young daughter shows up, she is not exempt from this fate either. Career-minded prosecutor Nick talks to his colleague about the Clyde case. The matter got out of hand last night because a judge ruled that DNA from the crime scene was inadmissible. He decided to take a plea deal rather than go to trial with the case. He's not taking any chances, saying some justice is better than no justice at all. Nick meets with Clyde, who hands him notes that he thinks might help with the case. Nick puts the notes aside and says that Darby has agreed to testify against Rupert, who will go to death row with his testimony. Darby will be sentenced up to 5 years in prison. Clyde, already emotionally scarred, is in disbelief. He begs Nick not to take the deal, but it's already been decided. That's how the justice system works. It's not about what you know, it's about what you can prove. Nick says it's a win for them, as if spitting in Clyde's face. In the courtroom, the whole incident was staged as if Rupert was the main culprit. Darby quietly makes fun of Nick's wife, as if she is next, and signs the plea deal. Outside, Nick makes a statement to the press about the ruling and Darby sarcastically thanks him for being in his corner. It's nice when the system works. Nick watches from a distance, still shocked at how unfair everything is. After a hard day at work, Nick comes home to his wife, Kelly, and to calm his nerves, he talks to his daughter in his wife's belly. 10 years later, Nick's daughter has grown up, but he is as busy as ever. Once again he has to skip his daughter's recital at school, and Kelly is unhappy that he is neglecting his daughter's life so much because of his work. Today is the day Rupert is to be executed by lethal injection, and Nick is present with his coworker Sarah. He witnesses the execution instead of his daughter's recital. Rupert's last words are that he wasn't the one responsible for the death of Clyde's family. That doesn't sit well with Sarah and Nick. Rupert is injected with 3 drugs, administered in a specific order. Instead of dying painlessly, he begins to shake and scream in pain and dies an agonizing death. Bravo, what a great show. The warden explains that they are not responsible for the man's agony, it has never happened before. A policeman arrives and hands the prosecutors a bottle with the phrase "Can't Fight Fate" written on it. Nick recognizes this phrase, and the police look into Darby and find his whereabouts. At Darby's, who is sniffing flour, he receives a call. The voice is muffled and tells everything there is to know about it. Darby becomes paranoid. The voice tells him to look out the window. He sees police approaching him from all sides. Darby rushes outside and fires a few shots at police cars. He gets another call from the muffled voice.
Guys, they do this chat not to get it demonetized. The videos on YouTube get demonetized, they have certain words and keywords, but he uses the R word earlier, right? Demonstrating if it's sexual assault, which is kind of like
telling him that if he wants to stay out of prison, he has to lose the gun and head toward the abandoned factory. Darby does as he is told. Fortunately, on the way there, he finds an officer asleep in his car. He gets in, grabs his gun, and forces him to drive. They stop at a deserted location. Darby drags him out and tells him to get on his knees, but before that, Darby takes a call and learns that his rescuer was none other than Clyde himself. Darby tries to shoot him, but it is a trap gun. Instead, he is injected with a paralyzing serum, but he remains conscious. In other words, Darby cannot move, but he feels everything. Clyde then restrains him at his warehouse and tells Darby that he will feel pain that he has never felt before. He has made all the necessary preparations to delay his death for as long as possible. Before he begins the torture, Clyde tells him that he knows what it's like to be helpless, just as he was 10 years ago. You can't fight fate. He starts the recording and begins to dismember Darby. Nick and Sarah discuss the tampering with lethal injection. Nick feels that Darby had nothing to do with it because he doesn't have the brains to pull it off. A while later, the police find Darby in 25 pieces. They notify Nick of the gruesome sight. Sarah realizes that the only person who has a motive is Clyde. He has sold all his assets in recent years, buying properties in bizarre places. He also owns the warehouse where Darby was found. The police brigade is on its way to Clyde's house, who is calmly undressing when he hears the sirens. They surround his house and Clyde receives them warmly, but naked. He is arrested, and on the way to the car he gives Nick a threatening stare. In Clyde's place they find books on law and a torn out piece of newspaper on which Nick and Darby shake hands. They have Clyde handcuffed in a jail's interrogation room. Unfortunately, they have no evidence against him and can only hope for a confession. Nick's daughter receives a recording of what is supposed to be her recital and begs her mom to watch it, but she turns her down, saying they will watch it with her father. Nick's daughter quietly puts in the DVD. It is not her recital, but Clyde cutting up Darby. Nick confronts Clyde. He turns off the live feed and puts on a little act, as if Clyde has done the right thing. Clyde confesses in a roundabout way that he wanted to kill Darby and Rupert and has been going over and over in his head on how to kill them. Nick takes this as his confession and starts to head out, but Clyde stops him, carefully explaining Nick's daily routine and telling him to sit down, even though Nick says they are done here. Clyde says that anything he told him is inadmissible because he never directly said he killed anyone and knows they have no proof. Even though Darby was found dead in Clyde's warehouse, Clyde owns numerous properties across the country and can say it was a setup. Nick says they know he did it, but it's not about what you know, it's about what you can prove. Yep. Clyde says he will give his full confession if Nick can do something for him. Clyde wants a bed and Nick's ego gets the better of him. No. Nick's supervisor, Jonas, scolds him for not taking the deal. A confession for a mattress when there is no evidence is pretty good. Nick firmly believes that Clyde is playing with them. Jonas once again advises him to make the deal. Clyde gets the mattress he wanted. Someone already is eyeing it out at prison. In the courtroom, Nick pleads to deny Clyde bail. In his defense, he claims to be a law-abiding citizen and Nick does not have a shred of evidence to keep him detained without bail. The judge is inclined to agree with Clyde. Nick says that Clyde agreed to give his full confession, but he did not. At that moment, Clyde starts to applaud, saying that she would just let a murderer go after giving her some sweet lines. Is this true? Everyone is shocked, as he berates the judge a few more times for being misguided before being escorted out. Bail denied. Later, in the interrogation room, Clyde describes the tape he sent him as good triumphs over evil, and as promised, he admits that it was him on the tape. He goes on to say that he has one more confession to make, but he needs something in return. Nick is tired of hearing his BS. Clyde mentions that he wants a 20-ounce steak, medium rare, and an iPod in prison for lunch. Before Nick leaves, Clyde offers him the life of Bill Reynolds as his confession. Bill was Darby's lawyer. Nick returns and Sarah says that Bill has been missing for 3 days. Clyde speaks into the camera, addressing Nick and saying that if he wants Bill alive, he must meet his demands tomorrow at exactly 1 p.m. The next day they get the steak delivered to prison, but 5 minutes before 1 p.m. the warden decides to double-check the prosecutors. When they arrive at Clyde's with the meal, they are 8 minutes late. He still keeps his cool and tells them the whereabouts of Bill. He also tells them that the 1 p.m. appointment was not for him, but for Bill, so they better hurry. Nick rushes to a helicopter and they fly to the scene while Clyde listens to his iPod and enjoys the steak with his cellmate, who had just threatened him. They quickly become good friends, but it is all an act by Clyde, who was after the T-bone from the steak. He turns up the music and gives the controller to the cellmate to distract him while he stabs him in the neck. The guards come to Clyde's cell and the warden is furious. Nick has found Bill buried with an oxygen mask. He's dead. It took them 15 minutes to get there from the prison. So if Clyde had gotten his lunch in time, Bill would still be alive. Nick receives a message from Sarah telling him that Clyde murdered his cellmate and the warden is moving him to solitary. Nick visits Clyde in his solitary confinement, asking what is the point of killing all these people. Clyde wants to hold all people accountable for their actions. Nick gives Clyde his daughter's bracelet and asks if his family would be proud of him taking vengeance in their name, but his wife and daughter can't feel anything. They are dead. Nick and Jonas meet a government official who has more information about Clyde. He says that Clyde is a born tactician who kills people without being in the same room with them. If Clyde is in prison, that means he wanted to be there. The cellmate he killed was not random. This is a pawn that was removed from the board and he suggests they look for the next piece. The official tells Nick that the only way to stop Clyde is to go into his cell and put a bullet in his head, because otherwise he cannot stop him, since he's targeting everyone who was involved in his family's case. As he leaves he says, "If Clyde wants you dead, you're dead." With this information, Nick and Jonas come to the judge and ask to violate Clyde's civil rights and restrict visitation to ensure everyone's safety. She agrees and signs a document. Her cell phone rings and when she answers it, it blows up. They are shocked. Nick visits Clyde in an interrogation room at the prison. He asks him about his accomplice and what the point of this revenge is. Clyde gets angry because Nick still does not understand what it is all about. If he wanted revenge, he would have slaughtered his family in the last 10 years. Clyde gives Nick one last chance. Release him by 6 a.m. or everyone will die. Clyde is escorted to a maximum solitary by a number of guards. Nick and Sarah meet at a prison where they go through documents to find any clues on who is helping Clyde from the outside, but without luck. Sarah starts to doubt if their decision to take the deal with Derby at the time was right. Nick assures her it was. The DA staff stays until 6 a.m., then Nick sends everyone home to rest. When Sarah starts her car, the bombs attached to the cars explode, killing everyone, including Sarah. Since Clyde is still in prison, Nick is sure someone is helping him. 6 officers have been killed. Nick and Jonas meet the mayor, who cannot imagine how one arrested man can do so much damage. She appoints the 2 security guards. Nick sends his family to a safe place and calls it a vacation. No credit cards or cell phones, nothing that could give away their location. When Nick comes back inside, he notices the framed newspaper article, which
plot twist, he has a twin brother.
Means someone has been in his house. Back at the prison, Clyde is let out for a walk
and is greeted
by Nick and the detective. Out of anger, Nick beats Clyde, who only says that it's good that he's angry, he's just warming up. The detective pulls a gun, but Nick stops him. Clyde says that what Nick is going to witness will be biblical. At Sarah's funeral, Jones thinks they brought this on themselves, but Nick still believes they did the right thing, but is beginning to doubt himself. As they drive away, a man in black clothing is controlling a military drone armed with a machine gun, a EMP and rocket launcher. He disables the cars and they come to a stop. Jonas' car is riddled with anti-tank rounds and to make sure Jonas is done for, he blows up the car. The mayor cannot believe Nick let this go on for so long. She wants to fire him, but to reduce media pressure on her, she appoints him as the new district attorney. The mayor of Philadelphia has issued an emergency order to lock down the entire city. No one is allowed to move unrestricted in the city. Nick receives an email from Sarah's contact. It's about real estate that Clyde bought. He finds all the property sold in Philadelphia in the last 10 years and compares the amounts. Nick finds out that Clyde owns a small garage, not far from the prison. He and the detective meet to check out the garage. They find a hole in the floor. It is a tunnel that Clyde dug that goes directly under the prison. Clyde made an entrance into every single cell. That's why he killed his cellmate. That was his plan all along. The detective checks Clyde's cell, but he's not there. Disguised as a janitor, Clyde gets past security and into City Hall through a light check. The detective and Nick find that Clyde has cameras everywhere, even in Nick's house, and a quote from von Clausewitz about the center of gravity, in this case, City Hall. Clyde plants napalm bomb to kill Mayor, who will soon hold a security meeting. Nick and the detective arrive soon after. As a precaution, they must proceed quietly so as not to alert Clyde that they are onto him. They notice Clyde's cart on the 5th floor, just below the conference room. They find a suitcase, which they suspect is the bomb.
It's a bait
the
whole
bomb
time.
squad man opens the suitcase and says the bomb is activated by cell phone and could go off at any moment. Some agents assigned to monitor Clyde's warehouse notice him pull up and notify Nick. Clyde goes to his equipment in the tunnel and watches as the meeting begins. He grabs his cell phone and climbs to his cell. In his cell, Clyde is startled by Nick. He has a gun and asks Clyde to do the right thing, giving him a way out. Clyde asks if he is here to make one last deal. Nick says he's finally learned what Clyde has been trying to tell him all along: I do not make deals with murderers. Nick tells him not to do it, that it's a decision he'll have to live with for the rest of his life. Clyde says he's sorry and calls the number. Nick leaves and says that by the rest of his life he meant about 25 seconds as the detective locks his tunnel door. Nick has placed the suitcase with the bomb under Clyde's bed. He looks at his daughter's bracelet one last time before his cell bursts into flames and blows up.
No!
The end.
What?
Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this.
What? Yeah, you know what I hate? You know what I hate? These fucking writers are always so self-righteous, they will not let somebody who takes revenge win, ever. The one who goes hardcore against the suckers and goes a little bit too far, right? Always gets smoked somehow. Oh, no. You don't get to have revenge. No, you don't get that. We don't show that to the public. People who get revenge, they don't win. Fuck is that, man? Fuck is that? Why didn't the bomb kill fucking 80 million people? Why not?
Welcome back to Movie Recaps. Today I will show you a crime, drama, thriller film from 2010, titled The Town. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The neighborhood of Charlestown, Boston is known for its high amount of bank robberies all year long. 4 long-life friends are particularly good at it. Doug,
you know why, right? It's because Jean-Paul live in the area.
Jem, Glonsey, and Des. Doug is the brain behind their plans, and he tells the other 3 all the details they need to memorize without fail before their next operation. When a guard enters the bank carrying a money bag, they take the chance to push him and enter with him, immediately taking control of the situation. Every person present is thrown to the ground, their cell phones are taken, and after the thieves empty the cashier station, they make manager xQc open the vault. After taking all the money and putting the security camera's hard drives in a microwave to destroy them, the thieves start pouring bleach all over the place to take care of any possible DNA proof, unaware that Claire is pressing a silent alarm button with her foot until it is too late. When they finally notice, Jem beats up the assistant manager believing it was him, and as he violently moves, Claire gets to see his neck tattoo.
Oh no.
Seeing as the police are about to surround them, Jem decides to take Claire with them as a hostage, which is something they never do. They blindfold her before taking off their masks, and once they are far enough from the bank, they drop her at the beach, not needing her anymore. The crime scene is taken over by the FBI, with Special Agent Adam Frawley in charge. He can see the thieves took care of every possible detail and left no evidence behind, which means they must be professionals. His men also find the van they used for the robbery, but it has been lit on fire and nobody in the neighborhood is willing to speak as a witness. The next day, Frawley interrogates Claire, who tells him the little she knows and omits the tattoo detail because the thieves have threatened to kill her if she gives the FBI any information. Meanwhile, the 4 thieves get together to discuss Jem's awful idea of taking a hostage, but when he arrives, he brings worse news. He has Claire's ID and has noticed she lives near them, so she will see him in the neighborhood often. He thinks he should follow her around and make sure she is scared enough not to talk, but Doug takes over and says he will do it because Jem has already been to jail once and he can't afford a second strike, but in truth, he will do it because he doesn't trust how violent Jem has been lately. Afterward, Doug and Jem go around the neighborhood to do all necessary payments to their gun dealer, their car dealer, and Fergie, an Irish mobster whose front is a flower shop. Then they spend the evening drinking, gambling, and taking drugs with call girls.
Hey!
The following night, the 4 of them are having a drink at a bar when they are approached by Chris, Jem's sister,
man, fuck, man, I'm getting
mother.
scared, man.
She and
fuck
Doug used to
me,
be together,
dude.
and she says she misses him. but Doug doesn't want anything to do with her and leaves. Some hours later, however, when Doug is watching TV at his place, Chris lets herself in with her old copy of The Keys and makes love to him on the couch. The next day, Doug starts following Claire around and enters the laundromat after her. When she starts crying because she finds faded bloodstains on her shirt, he takes the chance to make contact, pretending to comfort her. To make her feel better, he takes her out for a drink. They chat and bond, although Doug lies and tells her he works in construction and that his dad lives in the suburbs instead of being in prison.
This is what happened to what's his name again? Whatever the fuck.
Takes her on a boat ride, claiming it belongs to a friend, but actually he is breaking in just for this.
Goodwill
when
Hunting
she asks
friend.
him about all the bank robbers that live in Charlestown, he just says stories are exaggerated. The following day, when Doug meets with Jem, he tells him he has Claire under control and that she doesn't need to be killed. After interrogating and beating up a criminal contact of his, Frawley gets a clue. These thieves didn't do trucks like others, they knew how to work the box. This kind of knowledge can only be acquired while working somewhere like Vericom, so they start looking into work records and employee profiles. Frawley also meets Claire for lunch to ask her some more questions and tries to flirt with her, but she mentions she is already sort of seeing someone. Claire and Doug start going out together, a fact Doug keeps hidden from his gang. The closer they become, the more they share about each other. Claire admits she is working with the FBI, and Doug pretends to be simply curious to ask her if they have any possible suspects. She also mentions the tattoo she saw, which she doesn't know if bringing up to Frawley because if it may get her killed. Doug advises her to keep it a secret for now as a card she can play later, especially if it means avoiding witness protection. In return, Doug shares that his mom left him when he was 6 and he tried to find her, but his dad never did anything about it. During one of their dates, Claire talks about having to take the long way to work because some gang members throw bottles at her vehicle if she takes the normal road. So after dropping her at her home, Doug picks up Jem and together they go intimidate the assaulters. Doug only beats them up and plants some drugs, telling them to leave before the week ends, but Jem gets too much into it and shoots the guy's leg before taking off his mask and showing him his face. Doug isn't happy with how violent Jem has been lately. Meanwhile, Frawley finds Dez's file as a Vericom employee, whose sick days match the dates of various bank robberies. This allows them to follow him into a family barbecue and discover the identities of the whole gang, although they still are missing hard evidence to catch them. For now, Frawley orders his agents to keep surveillance on all of them. While having lunch together on a sunny day, Claire tells Doug that this weather reminds her of the day her brother died. When she leaves the table for a moment to go to the restroom, Jem suddenly shows up and sits with Doug, who is now worried he will find out his secret, so he tries to make him leave to no avail. Claire comes back, and while Jem is clearly shocked to see her, he still plays along and chit-chats for a bit before leaving, as Doug makes sure to say goodbye to him as an excuse to cover the tattoo with his hand. Later, Jem confronts Doug about her, thinking it is a terrible idea to sleep with the person that could send them to jail. He hasn't told the others, but he wants Doug to do something about it and concentrate on their next operation instead. Doug doesn't think they are ready for their next robbery because he doesn't like the guys they will be working with, so they should find someone else. Jem insists, however, so Doug gives in under one condition: this will be his last job. Afterward, he goes to see his father in prison to tell him he may be going away for a while and ask him why he never looked for his mother. His father replies that there is no point in trying to make a mother out of someone who clearly doesn't want to be one. When Friday comes, it is time for their next operation. They get some hair from a hair salon to plant as fake evidence, wash themselves thoroughly, and clean all their equipment with bleach so it doesn't have fingerprints on it. Then they take the car to follow an armored truck and rob it as soon as it parks. Things go smoothly at first, but one of the guards tries to fight back and aims his gun at them. The police are also coming after them, so as not to waste any more time, they kill the guard and go back to the car, driving away as fast as possible not to get caught. They cause many crashes in the way, and when the cops finally corner them, they shoot them too before driving back and escaping through the way they come. This time Glonsey tries some risky driving moves that allow him to make the police cars crash against each other, and they finally get to lose them when they find their fourth team member waiting for them in another car, so they change vehicles and light the previous car on fire, blocking the way for the cops. Frawley, who is following the case from his office, orders the police to close the bridge, but it is too late. The thieves cross it before the cops get there. As they change vehicles again, they are seen by a random officer that is parked nearby, but he turns a blind eye on them. While they don't have any legitimate proof to use yet, Frawley wants to at least talk to them, so he sends his men to bring the four of them in for interrogation. After making them read the lines the thieves said to the victims, Frawley tries to ask some questions, but Jem simply stays silent after requesting a lawyer, and Doug, knowing they have nothing on him, tells him they have always known they have been followed by the FBI because everyone knows what their antennas look like. Frawley's next move is to try to get some clues from Claire again, but when he calls the bank, he finds out she has quit. Getting suspicious of her now, he makes his men tap her phone and learns she has been in contact with Doug all this time. Doug also learns she quit when he meets with her to give her a diamond necklace, so he takes the chance to ask her to go away with him, which she accepts. After their date is over, Claire is visited by Frawley, who notices the necklace before showing her Doug's profile and telling her the truth. Meanwhile, Doug meets with Jem, who has a new job from Fergie, but Doug turns it down and tells him to find someone else because he is done. This enrages Jem, who accuses him of abandoning Chris and her baby, but Doug reminds him nobody knows who the father is, and while he's thankful Jem's family took him in as a kid, it was never going to be the three of them happily playing house. Jem points out that he once killed a guy to protect Doug and went to prison for 9 years for it, but Doug isn't touched, he still turns down the job. He then goes to see Fergie to inform him of this as well, but Fergie doesn't want anybody else because Doug is the real brain here. Doug's father went solo many years ago too, and that is why Fergie hooked his mother up with drugs. She never left, she died of overdoses, and Doug has been lied to all this time. If he doesn't accept the job, Fergie threatens to do to Claire the same thing he did to his mom. Doug rushes to Claire's place to check she is fine, but she kicks him out and doesn't let him apologize or explain. From then on, he tries to keep an eye on her apartment and sees one of Fergie's thugs hang a funeral wreath on her door. Doug destroys it as he finally accepts he will have no choice but to accept this job. After visiting Chris to tell her he will be gone after this job, Doug tries to approach Claire again and promises he will never hurt her, because he has robbed many banks but he has never killed anyone, then asks her to wait for him before leaving. The gang gets together to hear Fergie's plan. He has inside information to rob Fenway Park, and they will do it the morning after the big game, when their safes will be full. While they go over the details, Frawley approaches Chris at a bar, thinking she may be the weak link in the family. After fake flirting with her, he shows her his badge and implies he knows she is a mule for Fergie. When she asks for a lawyer, he makes his move and sows the seed of discord by pointing out that even if she was together with Doug for many years, he never bought her a diamond necklace. Chris gives him a fake lead, so the day of the operation, Frawley and his men follow the wrong truck while Chris visits Doug to ask him to take her with him because she also wants a new life, but Doug kicks her out after telling her he is leaving with someone else. Frawley finds her later in the hospital after she crashed her car while under the influence, and he promises he will find protection for her and her kid in exchange for information. Feeling as she is always getting used, she gives in and tells her about Fenway Park. While Dez uses his electrician knowledge to disable the alarms and security cameras, Doug and Jem dress up as cops and are allowed inside the stadium by a contact of Fergie's. They come across some employees and guards, but their police act doesn't work out and soon they are taking out their guns and making the men lower themselves to the floor so they can tie them up. Next, they go up to the cash room and tell the employees to open the door and not to make a distress call because they have men outside their homes and they will shoot their wives if they try anything. Obviously they are allowed to come in, and after filling their bags with as much money as possible, they leave through the parking lot, where Glownsy and Dez are waiting for them with an ambulance. The FBI is already surrounding the perimeter, but as soon as Jem sees them trying to sneak in, he opens fire on them. A shootout between thieves and agents begins and Glownsy gets shot in the middle of it, but at least they got him on the vest. While the other three continue to shoot, Dez sneaks back and opens the door so they can push the truck with the agents out of there. After he closes the door again, Doug tells Dez that unlike the others, he doesn't have a police record, so he can walk out and get only 7 years and none of them would blame him for it. Dez, however, feels rather insulted by this and stays after throwing the F word at Doug. The FBI throws some stun grenades through the windows then, and while the thieves' senses are compromised, they send special agents inside that shoot Dez as soon as he stands up. Glownsy decides to go for a very risky plan. He will drive out and keep the FBI's attention on him while Doug and Jem change back into their cop costumes and simply walk away through the main door because the FBI won't be looking for police officers. Doug worries about Glownsy's safety if he goes out there, but Glownsy promises he is a great driver and knows how to escape. The ambulance goes out and manages to drive down the block without issues, but when the FBI can't stop it by just shooting at its wheels, a sniper kills Glownsy by getting him on the head. While the FBI checks out the ambulance, thinking all the thieves will be there, Doug and Jem successfully change into their cop uniforms and easily escape by mingling with other officers. The trick doesn't last long, however, the FBI receives information from the employees that had been tied up inside, saying they had been ambushed by cops, so Frawley immediately starts looking around for officers behaving suspiciously. He quickly notices Jem walking away fast with a big bag over his shoulder and follows him into a parking lot. As soon as Frawley calls him by his name, Jem opens fire on him, and soon he finds himself surrounded by the FBI and cops while Doug watches from across the street. Frawley manages to wound Jem on the leg, so he hides behind a mailbox, only to realize he is out of bullets. Refusing to go back to jail, he commits suicide by walking out with his guns in hand, causing the agents to shoot him on the spot. Doug doesn't let his sacrifice be in vain and escapes by stealing a police car while everyone is busy checking on Jem's body. He drives to the flower shop and kills both Fergie and his thug, not getting hurt in return because he is wearing a bulletproof vest. Afterward, Doug
Easy.
recovers some money he had hidden and calls Claire, who has the FBI with her in the apartment listening to her conversation. Claire asks him to come over, claiming she is alone, but Doug knows she is lying because he is watching the apartment from a neighbor building. He still accepts to go
RPG.
though, asking her to meet him at the back door in an hour. After he apologizes again to her, Claire mentions sunny days as a subtle clue to let him know it is all a trap, and Doug plays along. While the FBI waits with Claire for someone that won't arrive, Doug hides some money in her garden and leaves a note on Frawley's car, insulting him. Then he leaves the city by train while wearing an MBTA uniform. Frawley is suspicious of Claire's sunny days line, but it is too cryptic for him to use as evidence of anything, and Claire is free of any possible charges. Days later, she finds the money Doug left for her with a note saying one day they may see each other again. She decides to donate it to refurbish the local ice hockey arena where Doug once played in memory of his mother. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.
I saw the movie, Jazz. This is actually kind of a lie. They didn't say it right. She doesn't actually donate it. What she does is that she pledges the money to the thing, but then she uses it for cocaine, and she gambles a lot. Okay. What else?
Today I will show you a drama.
I like the movie a lot. It's a good one. It's a good one.
I got a movie recap for you. It's a good one. Link.
Sport action film from 2011 titled Warrior. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. Tommy Conlon visits his pops, Patty, after 14 years. The house lacks a feminine touch and Patty says there are no more women for him. Must be hard to find a woman who can take a punch these days. Patty offers Tommy a coffee, but he just wants to have a drink with him. Patty is a recovering alcoholic and will soon hit the 1,000-day mark. Tommy turns the whole mood on Patty being an abusive husband to his mother, and Pops can barely contain himself. Brendan Conlon, Tommy's brother, is turned into a princess on his daughter's birthday. His wife, Tess, is a little upset with him for going over the family's budget with the gifts. When the party's over, she heads off to her job at a pub, leaving Brendan in charge of putting the girls to bed. If he waits for her tonight, she promises him some action for his good behavior. At Colt's gym, a report airs on MMA Live about billionaire Riley hosting an MMA Super Bowl named Sparta with a $5 million tournament where winner takes all. Tommy walks into the gym where he used to train and gets a monthly subscription. He notices the poster about the Sparta tournament. Tommy is working out alone and notices someone nicknamed Mad Dog beating a chump and gloating about it. The gym owner, Colt, asks to get another fighter and says he will pay him $200. Tommy says he can fight Mad Dog, but is turned down. As he is about to return to his bag, Mad Dog taunts him and Tommy turns around and asks Colt again to let him fight. Colt says if anything happens, it's his fault. Since he signed a waiver, it will not be a problem. The fight starts with Mad Dog on the back foot. One of the spectators records the fight as Tommy takes Mad Dog apart. He drops him to the ground and after several knee strikes to the face, he takes him down with a knockout punch. Not so mad after all. Tommy turns to Colt and asks for the 200. The crowd is in disbelief at how easily he had won. Brendan works as a physics teacher. He explains Newton's second law in an interesting experiment. His class loves him. After school, Brendan visits the financial advisor, who tells him that his mortgage payments are behind. He had to mortgage his house to pay for his daughter's heart transplant. The advisor seems to take the whole situation lightly, as he tells Brendan that he has 90 days to pay off the debt. Brendan will not be able to do that, so the advisor suggests he file for bankruptcy or face foreclosure. Patty is watching old footage of young Tommy in a wrestling match. He had won 7 gold medals at the time. Patty was his, in everyone's opinion, controversial coach. Colt is at his front door looking for Tommy. Patty inquires what he has to do with him. Colt explains that Tommy beat up the #1 middleweight contender in the world and he just wants some general information about him. Patty just says if you want to know anything about Tommy, you'll have to ask him yourself, and closes the door. Brendan is on the phone with his wife and says he's going to take a night shift as a bouncer at a club. In order to earn extra money, he actually takes part in a parking lot MMA fight with the mutilator Mike. The fight starts with Mike looking nimble and landing a nice punch. Brendan quickly responds with a few of his own and manages to drop him to the ground. With repeated punches to Mike's face while he's down, Brendan wins the fight. The crowd boos him as their favorite has lost. The organizers tell Brendan that he has to win 2 more fights to take home the prize. In the morning, Brendan comes home and Tess is shocked to see him so beaten up. He admits that he lied about his job as a bouncer and that he has gone back to his old antics. He had promised Jess not to do anything like that again, but they are running out of options, considering their payments. She promises that they will find a solution, but she wants him to give up fighting. Tommy visits his pops at a diner and tells him about the tournament where the winner takes all, and he wants Patty to train him. The devil you know is better than the devil you don't, Patty says, while referring to Colt and himself. He agrees to train him just like in the old days, but he has to drop the pills. Patty knows his son well. At school, everyone is talking about teacher Brendan and that one of the students saw him in an MMA fight. When he enters the class, they notice his black eye and confirm that it's true. He begins class, but the principal, Joe, calls him into his office. There, Joe reveals that the superintendent is coming and demands an explanation. Brendan used to fight for a living in the UFC. Guess he forgot to add that to his resume. The superintendent arrives as Joe says to just swear it will not happen again if Brendan wants to keep his job.
Joe who? Joe,
At
Joe
home,
Mama.
Brendan confesses to Tess that he has been suspended as a teacher until the next semester, without pay. To keep them afloat, he proposes to take on low-level fights again. She resists, but feels there is no better solution. Brendan visits the gym and catches up with his old acquaintance Frank. Frank apologizes for being out of touch and is happy to see him. Brendan tells his story about the bank wanting to take away his house, and discreetly asks Frank to train him to get back on his feet. Frank just spills the facts to him. Brendan is a teacher who did not perform well even at his best. Frank does not think he is what it takes to fight real fighters and not just some randoms in parking lots. Brendan says that he really needs it and that Tess knows about it. Frank agrees, but he will not be able to train him all the time because he's busy training with Marco for the Sparta tournament. That is good enough for Brendan. In the evening, Patty visits Brendan, who is not happy to see him. Patty admits that today is the day he's 1,000 days sober and he just wants to share a meal together, but Brendan doesn't want to do anything with him. If it's a special day for you, doesn't mean it's a special day for me. He walks away but stops when Pops says Tommy is back. He's at his house and they are training together. Brendan is speechless because Tommy has not mentioned anything to him, his brother. He is also angry that they are training as if nothing happened. Tommy has always been Pop's favorite son because he was much better at fighting, but even then he never trained Brendan and that still hurts. Patty asks him to forgive him and make room in his heart. Brendan forgives him, but he doesn't trust him. In cold blood, he closes the door on him. Tommy runs to the gym and Colt tells him that he got him into the Sparta tournament. Later, he calls a woman to see how she is doing and reminds her that he has not forgotten his promise. Tommy had served in the army with her husband and had promised him to take care of his wife when he died. Both Tommy and Brendan are trained and the news flash about the Sparta tournament and its uniqueness. There will be only one winner out of 16 fighters. A fighter from Russia, Koba, is in the mix. He has never lost a fight. Tess notices the news about the Sparta tournament on TV and the guy everyone is watching, Koba. Brendan spars with Marco, Frank's top contender for Sparta, and Marco taps out. 4 weeks of training pass and on one particular day Frank calls an ambulance because Marco has had an accident. At the hospital, Frank is told that Marco will not be able to participate in the fight. Brendan approaches Frank and tells him that he can take Marco's place. Frank is hesitant but agrees to make some calls and see what he can do. The next day, Brendan receives a call from Frank telling him that he got him into Sparta. Tess is furious because he made this decision all by himself. It's not about the money, she's worried that he'll end up paralyzed or worse, killed. Brendan says that if he doesn't try, the bank will take the house away from them in 3 weeks. Brendan wants Tess to support him, but she refuses to see him fight again. The Sparta Super Bowl is in full swing. The toughest middleweight fighters are here to prove who is the strongest in the world. Brendan is not even considered a threat. Tommy and Brendan notice each other in the lobby, but Tommy decides to avoid his brother. News breaks that Tommy is not only a dark horse in the Sparta Cup, but also a hero in the Iraq War. One of the soldiers recognized him on a video and thanks him for saving his life. Tommy is not pleased about this and goes for a walk. Brendan and Tommy meet outside. They keep their distance and are tense. Brendan offers to have coffee, but his brother refuses everything and says he is good here. Tommy left the family 14 years ago and Brendan stayed for Tess. He shows Tommy pictures of his family, but he dismisses him. Tommy does not consider Brendan his brother after choosing Pops and a girl over him and his mother. Brendan says that he has forgiven Pops, just like he forgave Tommy and Mom. This sets Tommy off. You forgave us? Brendan was the one who didn't follow through with the plan. Tommy berates him for being full of crap and takes his leave. This is Sparta. The stadium is full with spectators to see the biggest mixed martial arts spectacle in history. Tommy competes in the first round. He is an overnight sensation and is even called a war hero, but still no one has any idea who he is. Tommy is Google proof. He skipped all interviews, has no sponsors, no entrance music. He did not even have his picture taken. Tommy breaks every rule and is still the darling of the audience. They touch gloves and the commentators think Tommy is just here by luck. Tommy just walks up to his opponent and knocks him out. He leaves the cage like a boss without hearing the judge's verdict. Another rule out the window. Brendan is the next fighter. Frank composes him. When Beethoven's music starts, Brendan appears and his Pops tells him to win. The commentators say that Brendan is not a fighter and compare him to a goldfish thrown into a shark tank. The fighters touch gloves. The beginning of the fight is very different from Tommy's. Brendan gets beaten up and even thrown around. People supporting the teacher look on anxiously. Brendan gets caught in a chokehold. With 10 seconds left in the first round, Frank yells at him not to tap out. He just manages to stay afloat. Jess is worried as she waits for a text from her husband with the results and still refuses to watch the game. In the second round they exchange punches and Brendan manages to take his opponent in an arm lock. The commentators are a little shocked and his pops just mumbles to himself that he can do it. His opponent taps out and Brendan picks up his first win. Joe cannot control his excitement. Brendan shows great sportsmanship and the commentators believe this was a fluke. Jess is still waiting impatiently and finally receives a message. I won. She is happy for him. Only 8 fighters left, now 7, as Koba decimates his opponent. Jess cannot just sit and wait. She watches the fight as Brendan barely survives, and actually survives the first round until he takes his opponent in an arm lock and he taps. Another win for the physics teacher. Tommy, just like Koba, destroys his opponent in just 10 seconds. He goes straight into the final.
I watched the movie.
Tommy cannot sleep and Patty approaches him. He says he is proud of what he did for the soldier in Iraq. It turns out Tommy is not proud because he deserted from a unit and just happened to be in the right place at the right time. Patty really tries to get through to Tommy, to try to understand him, but all he gets is the answer, spare the father routine doesn't fit you, Pop. The only thing Tommy and Brendan have in common is that they both have no use for Patty. Tommy sends Pops packing, saying he liked him better when he was a drunk. This breaks Patty. He reverts to his old self, muttering nonsense from his audio recording. Guilt-ridden Tommy hugs Pops and comforts him. When it is time for the fight and only 4 fighters are left, the crowd is one-sidedly chanting Tommy's name. Today Tommy fights without Patty. Mad Dog is his opponent. He wants to avenge the humiliation he experienced at their sparring session. He is confident that today Tommy is going down. After an intimidating stare, which Tommy does not return, the fight begins. Mad Dog is immediately knocked down and Tommy simply destroys his face, with Colt screaming to end the fight. Another quick victory. Brendan's fight is against the Russian Koba, the clear favorite. The odds are 1,000 to 1 that Brendan will win. His wife Tess is here to cheer him on. They touch gloves and the fight starts with Koba dealing massive damage to Brendan, who returns a punch but seems ineffective. Punches Brendan receives nearly knock him to the ground each time. Koba drops him and lands a few more before the first round ends. The second round starts in the same fashion with Jess unable to watch. Brendan is tossed around like a rag doll. His students and Joe look on with concern. The second round comes to an end. Frank tells Brendan he will throw in the towel if they are not here to win. The third round is his last chance to knock Koba or he will have no house to return to. With determination in his eyes, the third round begins. Koba pounds on him and puts him in a chokehold. Brendan turns the situation around by throwing Koba over him and has Koba in a leg lock. Koba taps out and the tournament favorite is out. Brendan goes to the finals against Tommy. Word has spread that Tommy had deserted as a soldier and after today's Sparta final he will be taken into custody. If he wins, he wants his fallen comrade's wife to get the winnings. Since Tommy changed his last name to his mother's, people only now realize that Tommy and Brendan are brothers fighting in the finals of the biggest MMA fight ever. Brendan is someone who has the support of everyone around him, while Tommy fights alone. How it works. They start the fight, and as usual, with Tommy's precise and sharp movements he beats Brendan up. Brendan is thrown to the ground and pelted with punches. After the end of the first round, Tommy lands a punch on Brendan, after which the crowd gets angry about the foul play. Frank calms Brendan down and gives him some pointers to move more and they continue round 2. They engage in a fierce exchange of punches, which Tommy clearly wins as he keeps him pinned to the ground. At the start of round 3, Tommy again manages to get on top of Brendan, but this time is quickly taken down in an insane arm lock. Tommy screams out in pain but does not give up, so Brendan dislocates his shoulder to end round 3. Before the start of the next round, Brendan asks if Tommy's crazy to fight with a dislocated shoulder, but Tommy doesn't care. It's like he's punishing himself. Brendan refuses to fight him. Patty comes to the stadium and sees his 2 sons in a terrible situation. It's not a fight anymore, it's a one-man show with Brendan trying to get Tommy surrender, but no use. Round 4 ends. Patty gives Brendan the approval he's needed all these years and still doesn't come to Tommy's corner as a trainer. Tommy, with no one on his side, is overflowing with emotions. At the beginning of the last round, Brendan, faced with Tommy's resistance, decides to finish the fight. He knocks Tommy down and chokes him, asks for his forgiveness and tells him several times that he loves him, after which Tommy finally taps out. Brendan's wife, the kids, Joe, everyone is overjoyed. Brendan won the $5 million tournament. He helps his brother up, hugs him and tells him he always wants to be there for him. The fight has brought a torn family back together. The end. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this.
You guys seen the movie? I watched it I think 3 weeks ago.